Sportsbit is powered by BetOnline, driving the opening odds market since 2001. Visit sportsbookreview.com to learn more about BetOnline and its A+ rated platform in the link below.
Hey, welcome into SportsBit. Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy. Monday, October 30th, big game breakdown. Monday Night Football. Broncos and the Chiefs deep dive. Oh, the bad beats. They've been quiet the last month or so. They came out in full force. We'll recap the college in the deep dive. A lot of bad bets. And a good one to get to in the NFL where the books got middle on the same game side and total. One for the ages again. Game 5, 5 hours, 17 minutes. Astros as high as 12-1 in game. Dave Roberts bunted in a 13-12 game. That's hilarious. Morrow had nothing. The Dodgers bullpen had nothing. Kershaw couldn't. They gave Kershaw 7 runs. Keuchel had his shortest start of his career at home. That game had everything. 13-12 Astros in 10 innings. Verlander tries to clinch it tomorrow on the road. My God, what a game.
So I'm texting my buddy, right? And the Dodgers scored 3 in the first, and I go, ball game over. That's what it was. Game over. Dodgers got 3 for Kershaw in the first. There was a ton of Houston money in this ball game. The Dodgers were bet from minus 150 all the way down to minus 114 at Penny. Even in Vegas, closed at minus 117. That might be the biggest move we'll ever see against Kershaw in the box. And it was all wise guy money. And, of course, what happened? Keuchel got lit up. Keuchel, he'd only walked 4 of the 90 first-inning batters that he faced this season. Came out in the first, didn't have any command. Logan Forsythe drove in a couple of runs. And then what happens? You give Kershaw a big lead? Well, guess what? Clayton Kershaw has given up an MLB record 8 home runs this postseason. The Astros in that wild game came back not once, not twice, 3 different times with home runs to tie the game. It's the first time that's ever happened in MLB history. And, of course, you look at the numbers for Kershaw, give him a 4-run lead, 101. With 4 runs of support, he'd been 101 with a 1.94 ERA. The 1 loss was in the postseason. Well, now it's 2 losses in the postseason. Even 4 runs, not enough. How do you talk about that game? It was epic. It was legitimately the most as epic a baseball game as you'll ever see.
They have to stop screwing with the baseballs. That's number one. I don't know why you would do this in the World Series. Tom Verducci had a great article. McCullers did the Pepsi Challenge, where he was blindfolded and could tell what ball was World Series, what ball wasn't. Darvish said after Game 3 he couldn't grip the ball and throw a slider. You saw what happened to Keuchel. That was just crazy. Kershaw's cruising. He comes out for the 4th. He can't throw a strike. His location was off. And then, of course, Morrow, before the game, Roberts said he's unavailable. Morrow calls from the bullpen and says, I can go. And then he doesn't have anybody up behind him. And Morrow doesn't get it out and gives up 4 runs. First pitch was, second pitch? We gave up a home run. First pitch, whatever it was. That was another horrible decision by Roberts, too, as Morrow gave up 4 runs just like that.
Well, look at the graphic. The 4 runs he gave up came on 6 pitches. We're talking about a guy, and look at the tweet from Buster Olney. Morrow gave up 0 home runs in the regular season, and then, of course, gave up 2 home runs in those 6 pitches against Houston. What do you got? A solo home run, single, called strike, RBI double, wild pitch, and then a 2-run bomb, and that's the end of Brandon Morrow. What shocked me for Roberts, because Roberts has been brilliant this postseason, but the fact that you're putting Morrow up there, the 5th game in 6 days for Morrow, and you're not warming anyone up behind him, that was a little bit of a stunner for me, and obviously was a little bit of a stunner for Dave Roberts as well. But even with all of that, Dodgers rally back in the 9th to tie it and send it to extras. Houston's bullpen issue moving forward is every bit as bad, if not worse, than LA's bullpen issue moving forward. But who do you trust out of either of these bullpens now?
Well, I trust Verlander tomorrow because you won't have to use the bullpen. I don't see how the Dodgers can win that game tomorrow because Rich Hill's not going to give you much anyways, and Verlander gave up 2 hits. They were both home runs, but only gave up 2 hits in Game 2. So $1.10, I think it's a bargain. You can grab that right now. NFL review. We'll get to what happened straight up and against the spread in a second. We start with one horrible beat. The Cowboys-Redskins under 46.5. A pick 6 by the Cowboys with 30 seconds left. Play of the day winner with the Cowboys, all those injuries with the Redskins offensive line. That game definitely changed on the blocked field goal, which was returned inside the 5-yard line.
Yeah, I mean, literally, that was the difference in the ball game. Although the Dallas Cowboys were able to control the line of scrimmage in that contest. But I mean, what do you say to an underbetter when you're right there and the weather works out for you and everything's great and you're about to cash this winning ticket and there's no way because there's no timeouts for the Redskins. Cousins is not going to march them down the field and into the end zone. You know, what does he do? The pick six, the dreaded pick six. Those are brutal to lose games that way. My condolences for any of you who had the under in the Cowboys Redskins. That's a tough, tough way to lose.
Three legit middles, 2 in the same game. How about the Jets and Falcons, which opened 3.5 as high as 7. It falls 5. And then the total, which was open 47, closed 43.5 in some spots and falls 45.
Yeah, I mean, it was a real problem. You want to talk about a disaster for sportsbooks. This one is a disaster. All right. In Vegas, the parlay cards got printed on Tuesday. Atlanta's 4.5 and 46.5 on Tuesday. All right. And it got printed that way on a lot of cards. So Falcons are covering and the under is coming in on the cards. But of course, we talk about favorites covering the parlay cards. That's immediate liability for the sportsbooks. But I mean, this is legit. It was 4.5 at the open, bet down to 3.5, back up to 4.5, sat 4.5 all week, and then boom, ton of Falcons money, up to 7, bounced back to 6.5. The books got clobbered on this game, all right, clobbered. And when you talk about side and total, both landing in the middle of an NFL game, betting markets did their job too well. They got this game really right, and of course, it paid off for bettors, but bookies paying out both sides of both side and total for Atlanta, New York.
They made money in Vegas here again. I don't know how. I don't know what a life it is to be a bookmaker because they got middled in this game too. At least you could have middled it. The Saints 7.5 up to 9. It falls 8 in the middle. Saints win by 8. They've won 5 in a row. And bad for the books. The Vikings Browns playing in London. Nothing but Minnesota money. They trailed in the third quarter and somehow covered the 11.5. As that went from 8.5 to 11.5, and they still got the money.
Yeah. I mean, with the Saints, and that's another one that's a legit middle. This bounced between 7.5 and 9 all week, and it closed, 7.5 at Penny and Chris and BOL. Closed 8 at South Point, 8.5 at Westgate, 9 at Cantor and Bovada. Wasn't a sharp square thing. Books aren't usually too worried about 5s and 8. They got middled on both of them this past Sunday. And boy, you talk about a big steam move. Minnesota, I mean, no one's going to care about this game if it's in the midst of the early games, but it's a standalone. Oh, everyone that's up early, they're getting involved, and no one's betting Cleveland. Minnesota, as you mentioned, trailing in the second half, trailing at halftime. Good half for the Cleveland Browns. Wasn't enough. Vikings dominated after the break and drew heavy action in that standalone ball.
Couple other bad bets. Raiders took money from 3 down to 1.5, blown out in Buffalo, and the Bengals took money from 9 to 11. Lucky to win. Needed a pick 6 on defense late in the game by Dunlap to hold on and beat the Colts 24-23.
Yeah, I mean, the Raiders were awful again yesterday. 4 turnovers. They gave up 166 rushing yards and a very distressing performance if you have anything future-wise for Oakland other than an under bet on the Raiders this season. And the Who'da Thunk It award goes to this tweet. Look at this tweet from Andrew Siciliano. The Bills, the Buffalo Bills, the team that no one's excited about their offense. They've now scored 20-plus points in 13 consecutive home games, the longest such active streak in the NFL. And, of course, they did it in weather all across the East Coast yesterday. Yeah, and with the Bengals and the Colts, I mean, the cardinal sin for Jacoby Brissett. You have a fourth quarter lead. You cannot throw a pick 6 in that circumstance. Carlos Dunlap with the incredible play to get the win for Cincinnati, I should say, but not the point spread cover. The books made some of it back. They got clocked. The bettors got some of it back. The bettors got clocked betting Cincy up, but that total got bet from 41 up to 44. The over cashed in with relative ease. So books got the side, bettors got the total.
All right, pros versus Joe's recap. Pros 2-2, 21-13 year to date. win with the Vikings and the Panthers. Boy, the Buccaneers are terrible. Winston had more turnovers. I think that's the 14th time he's had 2 turnovers or more in a game in the last couple of years. The only guy who has more is Bortles. Raiders loser, Bengals loser. How'd the Joes do?
Yeah, I mean, the Joes actually had an okay day, and I honestly didn't know how to grade the Falcons. So they won with the Eagles. I call the Falcons a push because on Friday, when we recorded Pros versus Joes, that line was in the 4.5 to 5.5 range. You can grade it either way you want it. Be careful of those aggregate stats because you'll see misgraded games like this. I call it a push. The Joes with the 1 win, 1 push, now 11-21-1 year to date, although undefeated this week. And of course, we'll talk about Kansas City and Denver coming up next on Big Game Breakdown.
All right, we'll get to that coming up. And for the first time in a while, some liability out there for the books. Teasers, money lines, Chiefs, because the favorites went 10-1 straight up, Teddy. Carolina, the only road team, or the only dog that went outright. That was strange.
Yeah, and the Panthers, of course, were all of a 1.5, 2-point dog on game day. So favorites went 6-5 against the spread, but 10-1 in straight up fashion. Not a good week for underdog money line bettors.
Monday Night Football up next, and you won't believe what happened in college football with the recap. Some horrible beats and 2 vicious beats with totals as well. The deep dive with college football recap straight ahead on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Hey guys, thanks for stopping by Sportsbook Review, YouTube's largest sports betting channel. Every day we're here giving you the most up-to-date news and info, all to help you make the best bet. On top of that, guys, it's free. So look, do us a favor, click the like button, subscribe to our channel, leave a comment or a question. Our goal here is to make sure that everyone becomes a smarter bettor. So join the SPR Army today and start winning with Sportsbook Review.
We're back on SportsBit, Pauly and Teddy, Big Game Breakdown. Always sponsored and powered by BetOnline. Strong promotions, every type of wager you're looking for, exceptional customer service. Chiefs at home to the Broncos, 7, 42.5 the total. Big spot here for the Broncos. We talked about this on SportsBit when the schedule came out. What did I do to deserve this? That's what Denver's saying. At LA to take on the Chargers, loss. Monday night in Kansas City, followed by a short week and an early start in Philly. Then they catch the Patriots at home, and New England's off a bye. This stretch will determine if the Broncos sink or swim.
Although it doesn't get a whole lot easier down the stretch, they play 4 of their last 6 on the road, and 3 of those 4 road games are trips back east, which the Western teams don't tend to fare well in. So, yeah, these 3 games crucial for their season, 3 step-up in classes in a row for Denver, but doesn't get a whole lot easier down the stretch for this Broncos squad, especially if you consider the struggles of this defense. Look at the Football Outsiders charts, all right? The rush defense has been solid all year, but the pass defense has declined pretty significantly based on the FBO ranking. Number 1 in 2015, number 1 in 2016, in 2017, all the way down to number 17. What's the decline, Pauly? Well, mostly it's about Denver's offense and opposing teams not having to play from behind against the Broncos and force the ball downfield. Nobody's playing aggressive against Denver these days. They're playing conservative, and the Broncos haven't been able to challenge that. That means the defense unable to make plays.
Yeah, 2 great quotes here. Number 1, Coach Vance Joseph. When you don't score, it's hard for our defense to cause havoc. Everything's being played close to the vest. The Giants threw 1 pass over 8 yards. It's hard for us on defense to be the difference if it's not with a lead. Teams are going to try to run the ball, 3rd down, try their luck and punt it back. Chris Harris, quote, they don't even give us any plays to gamble with. Everything comes out fast, pick plays. They don't throw the ball down the field. They're scheming us. They're setting pick plays, and they're figuring out ways to empty us out with 3 tight ends. When have you seen a ball, other than the Raiders in the first Charger game, go down the field 40 yards? It doesn't happen. Good information there. Can they fix Simeon, who has as many interceptions as touchdowns, and the road issues? 0-2 straight up in ATS on the road and only 16 points. Didn't do anything in the second half at Buffalo and were shut out against the Chargers in a horrible performance as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are a lot of concerns right now in my mind about Trevor Siemian. We're talking about a guy that for the season has as many interceptions as touchdowns. He's been sacked 9.4% of his dropbacks. This is a mobile quarterback in theory. It's a Broncos team that's, no-shows. Their last 6 quarters, they were played a decent first half at Buffalo. Other than that, the last 6 quarters on the highway, they've been annihilated. And Simeon been sacked 8 times, thrown 3 picks, hasn't thrown a touchdown. They were shut out last week, and they didn't really come close to putting any points on the scoreboard. You throw in the injury to Emmanuel Sanders, and that continues to be a concern for an offense that all of a sudden doesn't have a whole lot of playmakers, not getting real good blocking up front, and is getting second-tier quarterback play. That's a bad trio when you're heading into Arrowhead on Monday night.
And then you got issues with the Chiefs' defense. They've lost 2 straight now after the hot start. But the Football Outsiders rankings here, last year they were 13th on offense. This year they're first. Defense was 14th. This year they're 25th. And they're struggling both ways. They're 28th against the run and 19th against the pass. They certainly miss Eric Berry. And Bell went for 179 against them. And last game, Carr had 400 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he wasn't sacked. So if the season ended today, they'd be a rare team to have a Pro Bowl quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. But the talent across the board has allowed Reed to open up the playbook. But they haven't been able to get stops lately, and that is definitely cause for concern with the Chiefs. Although it's a great matchup as you're getting the reeling Broncos coming to town as well.
Sure, but the fact that Oakland again yesterday couldn't do anything on offense,
right.
The offense didn't work, and yet when they played Kansas City, marching up and down the field, you mentioned it, Derek Carr, 417 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 sacks, 0 INTs against that Chiefs defense. And the week before was Le'Veon Bell for $179 on the ground, while Kansas City had 21 rushing yards in that contest. So there are some legitimate concerns about this Chiefs defense. That being said, when you have Pro Bowlers at quarterback, running back, tight end, wide receiver, maybe even on the offensive line, it certainly helps mask some of those issues. And worth noting, Kansas City is expected to get as many as 3 starters back on the field. The cornerback Nelson should be back this week, and 2 guys on the offensive line, Morse, the starting center, the right guard, DuVernay Tardif, both likely to suit up. Morse, in particular, the starting center, hasn't played since week 2. It should be an upgrade for that KC offensive line compared to where it's been in recent weeks.
This will be the play of the day coming up. After the deep dive, college football. You won't believe the bad beats on Saturday in college, and some horrible bets, too, that started Friday night on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Here we go, deep dive. Pauly and Teddy, SportsBit, Betting Insight today, college football recap. Here come the bad beats. It's been quiet the last couple months. Let's start with Rice plus 12. Game's tied with a minute left. Louisiana Tech scores, and whoops, they get the pick 6. They win 42-28. I was on this one. This one was horrible. Michigan State Northwestern under 42. It's 10-10 with 11 minutes left. It's sitting on 27 in the final minute. It goes to overtime. It falls 70. 39-31 Northwestern in triple overtime. I thought D'Antonio should have gone for 2 and the win on the road. Northwestern goes touchdown, touchdown, touchdown in all 3 overtimes, and also they get the 2.
Exactly. When you have 27 points in the final minute and the game falls 70 after triple overtime, yeah, that's a bad beat. When the game's tied and you're plus 12 with a minute to go, and then they score and then you give up a pick 6, it's not belt bowl worthy, but it's a bad beat. What about Oklahoma, Texas Tech over? Total sitting at 77. Early bettors won. It got steamed up earlier in the week, but it was sitting at 76 in the third quarter. Tech stopped at 4th and goal from the 2-yard line with 11:16 to play. Oklahoma with a 19-play final drive to run the game out. Tough beat for over bettors. Tough beat for Texas Tech bettors, for that matter, at plus 20, plus 21, and in that range. They ended up losing by 22.
3 more doozies here. USC, Arizona State under 59. A Hail Mary before halftime for Arizona State. And then a pick 6 with a minute left for USC puts it over. App State, UMass under 56.5. It's 20-20. Whoops, overtime. And then it gets over by a hook in double overtime. Another vicious beat. as it falls 57. And this, oh my God, if you had this one, take a week off. New Mexico, Wyoming, the total was 47. It was 42-0 at the half, 42-3 final.
Yeah, not much of a performance for the Lobos. We've seen that now in back-to-back road games for New Mexico, where the offense basically didn't get off the bus. Bad bets, yeah, there were plenty of those too when it started on Friday night, Pauly. Florida State against Boston College. We were getting tweets about this. We had BC as our sports bet play of the day on for Friday's show. Actually, early in the week we used it. And the line got steamed. I mean, 3.5 up to 6. There were 6.5s out there on Florida State with all of that Seminoles money. And folks out there in Twitter land were like, Teddy, Pauly, what's going on? You still like it? I'm like, yeah, we like it even more. We're getting more points with the Seminoles. No show for Florida State. The markets did not respect that young Boston College team. Steve Adagio is doing something very, very right. The only team in the country with their leading passer, leading rusher, and leading receiver, all freshmen. BC's only going to get better in the weeks and months to come.
I don't think Florida State's covered a spread the whole year. And they've quit. They have 5 losses. They're laying points on Saturday. Good luck. Tulane, Memphis, under 66, bet down to 61.5. What were they doing there? It fell 82. SMU from 9 up to 12 against Tulsa, only won by 4. Virginia took money from +3 down to +1, lost by 17 against Pitt. And this might have been the worst steam move of the year. Coastal Carolina from 7 to 10 against Texas State. Not only did they lose 27-7, their only touchdown was on a scoop and score, and they were outgained 530 to 183.
Yeah, good thing they got bet up. Ton of steam for Coastal Carolina's 10-point chalk. What about Wisconsin? You know, they were bet up -24 up to -28.5 against Illinois. They didn't score 28.5. They win 24-10. The Illini in it throughout. San Jose State against BYU. We talked about this one on Pros versus Joes, where the early money was coming in college football. BYU routes the Spartans 41-20. Fresno, they were bet up from 18.5 to 21.5 against our hometown UNLV Rebels. They lost that game in straight up fashion. The Buffalo Akron, wild MAC move there. Buffalo was as high as +3.5. They closed at -3. The game lands right in the middle. A bunch of steam towards Buffalo when it was announced that Tyree Jackson would return. The early info bettors cashed. The followers got stung. And let's not forget about Florida International. Marshall bet up to -17 against FIU. Butch Davis, all of a sudden 5-2. He's nailed back-to-back double-digit outright wins as an underdog.
It's incredible how these kids bet today. The South Point here in Vegas won $50,000 just on the Marshall game because everyone had Marshall on a money line parlay, and a guy had a $100,000 money line parlay capped off with Fresno State. UNLV has probably become the first team in history to lose as a 45-point favorite and win as a 22-point dog. You figure it out. Bad for the books, plenty of it. Nebraska +6.5 down to 4, won outright against Purdue. Oklahoma State from 7 up to 9, and the total from 74.5 to 78. All over West Virginia, 50-39. Greer 4 interceptions, and they were 2 of 15 on third down. Air Force +13 down to 9.5. Routed Colorado State on the road, 45-28. Colorado from 2.5 to 4, and the total from 52.5 to 55.5. Cal stinks on the road. Markets knew it, 44-28. And Tate does it again. Arizona 4-0 with him as a starter. Get him in the Heisman discussion. He had 800 rushing yards in October alone, most for any player in the last 10 years. Arizona from +3 went off the favorite, 58-37 at home against Washington State.
I don't know, there's been a more impactful player in college football, certainly not to his team, than Khalil Tate for Arizona. Of course, he still doesn't have enough attempts to even be in the NCAA leaderboards yet, so he's not going to get any Heisman love. That being said, Arizona took a ton of money against Washington State. Luke Falk got benched. The Wildcats continued their impressive turnaround season with the 3-touchdown win. Mississippi State, Nick Fitzgerald, that's a guy we've talked about on Sportsbet a fair few times already this season, did it again. Dominating performance, ton of Bulldogs money, +1 at the open, -3.5 at the close. They beat the Aggies 35-14. We saw Boise take money and a couple of totals. And what about Missouri? Bet up from -11 to -14. This is a bottom feeder that's all of a sudden winning games by 40 on the road against UConn. That, too, a bad result for the house.
All right, those Louisville totals are way too low. 4-point move in that game, and it flies over. Money time, play of the day. Back to Monday Night Football. What do you want to do?
Sure, let's take a look at the side. Betting number 274. We're going to take the Kansas City Chiefs minus the 7. You don't need to lay a hook for this ballgame. And we've seen Kansas City blowouts in recent matchups against Denver, 33-10. 23-19, one blowout in each of the last 2 seasons. We have the Emmanuel Sanders injury. That matters. The Broncos scored 42 points at home against Dallas week 2. Remember that team? They were dominant. We haven't seen that team since. In fact, the 42 they scored against Dallas, they scored 42 points since that game total, and all their game combined. Look at the pick. Trevor Siemian, yeah, Justin Houston's going to eat him alive tonight. Take the Chiefs minus the 7. That's our play of the day.
All right, back tomorrow. That means Dave Mason, Bet Online on Tuesday to recap how the books and the players made out. Game 6 of the World Series. We'll get to the Bills and the Jets. Big game for the Bills on the road, Thursday Night Football. Coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com. Thanks for watching.